On June 10, 2021, Princess and broke a decades-long silence. Cameras flashed. Whispers filled the room. The world wondered, why did Prince Philip, the Queen's husband for 73 years, never live full-time in Buckingham Palace? Rumors swirled. Was it protocol, personal choice, or something deeper? Anne's rare words hint at the truth, but the full story is hidden behind palace walls. So, what really kept Philip apart from the Queen every night? Footsteps echoed through the marble halls of Buckingham Palace. Cameras flashed in the grand ballroom, capturing every movement. Yet, in one corner of the palace, silence hung heavy. Philip's private quarters remained unusually quiet, even as staff whispered and shuffled about their duties. It was a palace of tradition, built in 1837, and yet one rule, or one choice, stood out. The Duke of Edinburgh did not live full-time with the Queen. Buckingham Palace has strict rules about senior royals having separate bedrooms. This was meant to preserve privacy, respect duties, and maintain order. But insiders reported that Philip's preference for his own routine, late nights reading naval documents, early mornings at the gym, and hours spent alone thinking, played a bigger role than anyone expected. Staff claimed they sometimes paused in the corridors, wondering why a man so devoted to duty spent so much time apart from his wife. Visitors often noticed the empty wing, asking questions. Was it coldness, protocol, or something deeper? Some letters and diary entries, reported by royal historians, hint that Philip valued personal space. The idea is simple. Even in a marriage, a person sometimes needs their own room to rest, reflect, and recharge. It may seem unusual to outsiders, but for Philip, it allowed him to manage both duty and life on his own terms. Could there be a more personal reason, hidden from the public, behind this separation? The story does not end in these quiet halls. The real answer wasn't in the rules, it was in Philip's habits, and that detail changes what happens next. Rain pounded on the stone walls of a distant castle in Corfu, Greece, as a young boy named Philip ran across the courtyard. Cameras didn't exist then, but the echoes of footsteps and the tense pauses of his caretakers marked his childhood. Born on June 10, 1921, Prince Philip came from a world of exile, loss, and royal titles. His early life was far from easy. Philip's parents separated, and by the age of 3, he had lost his father. His mother faced mental health struggles, leaving Philip in the care of relatives. Reported sources say he was sent to schools across France, Germany, and England. One of the most notable was Gordonstoun School in Scotland, known for strict discipline. Students endured long drills, cold showers, and relentless physical exercises. Reportedly, this environment built resilience but also a strong sense of independence. Philip learned early that he needed to rely on himself. These experiences likely shaped the man who later chose to live separately from the Queen. The palace reported that Philip valued routine, order, and private time, habits rooted in his youth. Staff later said he often retreated to his quarters to read letters, plan naval strategies, or simply be alone. He may have sought control over his life in a way his early years had denied him. Could childhood hardship explain why Philip preferred distance even in marriage? And here's the twist. While the public saw a devoted husband, the personal habits formed in Corfu and Gordonstoun silently guided decades of royal life. But the story doesn't end there. This is where it turns. Cameras clicked relentlessly on November 20, 1947, as Elizabeth walked down the aisle with Philip. Applause filled the air, and the scent of fresh flowers drifted through the chapel. But behind the public celebration, a quiet tension lingered. Philip, still shaped by years of exile and strict schooling, faced a new challenge, balancing love with duty. The world expected him to be the perfect consort, yet the palace had rules that limited his presence in certain spaces. Royal protocol demanded that Philip support the Queen without overshadowing her. This included attending ceremonies, hosting dignitaries, and following strict schedules. Reported sources say that while the public saw him at official events, Philip often spent nights in his private quarters, managing personal affairs or reading naval documents. The separation was not rebellion, but a way to maintain both personal and royal responsibilities. Whispers among palace staff suggested that some people found this distant behavior puzzling, while others respected his need for space. The media noticed too. Tabloids speculated endlessly about tension or coldness in the marriage. Some claimed Philip was uninterested, while others suggested disagreements with the Queen. But the real reason was more subtle: years of personal habits, a deep need for routine and respect for the Queen's schedule shaped his choices. Reportedly, and hinted in later interviews, that there was more than mere protocol guiding Philip's decisions. Was Philip's distance purely about royal duty, or did personal preference play a bigger role? Here's the twist: even small decisions, like where he slept at night, reflected a lifetime of independence and carefully maintained order. And that's where the real trap is hidden. Footsteps echoed along the decks of naval ships as Philip moved through the cold, early morning mist. Cameras and reporters were far away, but the palace halls were never quiet. Staff whispered about his routines, while the world speculated endlessly. Philip, the Duke of Edinburgh, lived in two worlds at once, one of public duty and one of private space. During the 1950s and 1960s, Philip took on naval postings that kept him away from London for weeks at a time. Meanwhile, as Queen Elizabeth carried out state duties, he reportedly preferred solitude to constant public appearances. Historians noted that his private routines, reading naval letters, planning engagements, or simply walking alone, helped him maintain focus and energy. Tabloids, however, often misunderstood his behavior, claiming he was cold or distant. Public opinion was divided. Some admired his discipline, others criticized his absence. The palace's expectations were clear. Philip was the Queen's consort, a role that required support but not dominance. Reported sources say that living apart allowed him to respect these rules while preserving personal well-being. His habits created quiet moments in the palace that few ever witnessed. Yet whispers among staff hinted at a deeper motivation, a psychological need for space that went beyond mere routine. Could Philip's personal habits have been the real reason behind decades of separation? And here's the twist: what the public saw as coldness was, in fact, careful planning. His life in the shadows balanced duty with personal autonomy. Because the next move doesn't happen in public. Cameras flashed and microphones hovered as Princess Anne stepped forward on June 10, 2021. Silence fell. Staff froze, whispers stopped, and every eye was on her. For decades, the world had wondered why Prince Philip, the Queen's husband for 73 years, never lived full-time in Buckingham Palace. Now, Anne finally spoke, and the mystery began to unfold. Big reveal. Anne explained that Philip's choice was not coldness, rebellion, or failure in duty. Reportedly, he valued personal space and strict routines. Living apart allowed him to recharge, follow his own schedule, and respect the Queen's busy life. Staff confirmed that his habits, early mornings, late nights, hours alone reading and planning, were part of a deliberate lifestyle. The Queen understood this, and it worked. Reported historians note that this arrangement helped maintain harmony in a marriage that was also a lifelong partnership in duty. Anne's words also revealed subtle hints about the Duke's personality. He was fiercely independent, disciplined, and mindful of tradition. This independence shaped not only his marriage but also the royal household. Staff noted that his private quarters were not a sign of distance but of care, for himself and for the Queen. His choice created balance. Love and duty could coexist without constant proximity. Could this revelation change how the public sees Philip's role in the royal family? Here's the twist. Many years of misunderstanding, speculation, and rumor were now clarified in one rare statement. And that detail changes what happens next. Phones buzzed in newsrooms as headlines screamed across newspapers in the 1970s and 1980s. Reporters rushed to print stories about Prince Philip's supposed coldness, his private life, and his separate quarters in Buckingham Palace. Meanwhile, in the palace, footsteps echoed softly through empty corridors, and staff whispered about routines that no one outside could fully see. The truth, hidden in plain sight, was very different from the tabloid stories. Philip's life was carefully structured. Reportedly, his choice to live apart was about personal space, mental clarity, and respect for the Queen's schedule. He rarely gave interviews, and palace communications were limited, creating a vacuum filled by speculation. Journalists claimed tension or distance in the marriage. But historians noted that Philip's actions were deliberate, not signs of estrangement. Insiders reported that his habits, early mornings, late-night reading, and private walks, were all part of maintaining balance in a demanding life of duty. The public often misunderstood him. Letters, interviews, and memoirs revealed that while tabloids painted Philip as aloof, staff and family knew the truth. Living separately allowed him to be present when needed, engaged fully in duty, and still have time for himself. Here's the twist. Decades of rumor were based on assumptions, not facts. This misrepresentation fueled curiosity about the royal family and caused endless debate. Could the media have misunderstood every aspect of Philip's life for decades? And that's where the real trap is hidden. The story told in newspapers was only part of the truth. Footsteps echoed through the quiet halls of Buckingham Palace as staff prepared for memorial events after Prince Philip's death on April 9, 2021. Cameras flashed outside, and journalists scribbled notes, but inside, the palace reflected on a life lived both in public and private balance. Philip's choice to maintain independence, even in marriage, left a clear mark on the royal family and the public's perception of duty. His children, Charles, and Andrew, and Edward, watched closely as he modeled a way to balance personal needs with royal responsibility. Princess and later said that her father's habits taught her the value of autonomy. Reported sources confirmed that his routines and insistence on personal space shaped the household, creating a model of respect, discipline, and love. Staff noted that Philip's separate quarters were not a sign of distance but a way to preserve harmony in a busy palace life. Public reaction after his passing praised his humor, devotion, and quiet strength. Observers remarked on how his independence allowed him to remain engaged without conflict. Letters and memoirs revealed that even when apart from the Queen, Philip's presence and influence were deeply felt. His legacy showed that love does not always require constant proximity, and duty can coexist with personal freedom. Here's the twist. His decisions, once misunderstood, now serve as a guide for future royals on balancing life and duty. Could the lessons from Philip's independence influence future generations of royals? And that's where the real trap is hidden. The balance between duty and self may not always be visible, but it is essential. What do you think? Could a royal couple really live apart for decades and still be happy? How much do you think the media got Philip's life wrong over the years? Which royal tradition do you find the most surprising or misunderstood? If you want to see more hidden stories and secrets from the royal family, subscribe now and don't miss a single video.